The Valdrine Armada dropped out of faster than light. Travel at the edge of the Sol system with the precision of a machine that had done this 500 times before. 500 massive warships arranged themselves in a perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Earth's sun. On the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander Valthrex watched the primitive star system appear on his displays with the same bored expression he had worn for the last 3 centuries of conquest. This was routine. A newly discovered species, young, barely 200 years into space travel. The intelligence reports said they called themselves humans and had only recently established colonies on a few planets in their home system. Standard procedure applied here. Show overwhelming force. Deliver the ultimatum. Watch them panic. Accept their surrender. Move on to the next system. Valthrex had personally overseen 47 such operations. This would be number 40-8. He gestured to his communications officer. The message had been prepared weeks ago, translated into the primitive radio wave language these humans used. It was always the same message, just different words. Submit to Valdrine authority. Provide 30% of all resources as tribute. Allow Valdrine military bases on all major worlds. Resistance would result in immediate pacification. Every species eventually agreed. Some took longer than others, but they all agreed in the end. The communication beam shot across space toward the third planet from the sun. Earth, the humans called it Earth. Valthrex waited. Usually the primitive species would respond within minutes, their leaders scrambling to understand what was happening, trying to buy time with questions and negotiations. The Valdrine commander smiled. Time was something he had in abundance. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. What were a few hours to immortals? On Earth, in the orbital command station above the planet, Admiral Hayne received the Valdrine message with the same calm expression he brought to every crisis. Around him, dozens of officers monitored screens showing the massive alien fleet at the system's edge. Nobody was panicking. Nobody was scrambling. Hayan read through the ultimatum once, twice, then handed the datapad to Captain Yuna standing beside him. Yuna read it and raised an eyebrow. They want 30% of everything we produce? Apparently Hayan said, That's adorable, Yuna replied, handing the pad back. Specialist Hay looked up from his tactical display. Sir, their formation is identical to 17 previous Valdrine operations we've studied from other species records. They're not even trying to be creative. Hugh nodded slowly. For the past 30 years, since humanity had discovered the remains of a destroyed alien civilization in a nearby system, Earth's military had been preparing for this moment. They had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They had analyzed battle records recovered from ancient data cores. They had watched the Valdrine Empire conquer species after species through long range. Observation posts humanity had secretly established across the galaxy. The Valdrine were strong. They had numbers. They had energy weapons that could crack planets. They had shields that could withstand nuclear explosions. They were, by all accounts, the most powerful military force in known space, but they were also predictable, lazy, arrogant. They had been the biggest power for so long that they had stopped innovating centuries ago. Why improve when nothing could challenge you? Why adapt when the same tactics worked every single time? Heen opened a communication channel to Ambassador Hannah, who was waiting in the diplomatic suite. Ambassador, they've sent us their standard subjugation demand. Hannah appeared on his screen, looking as relaxed as if she were attending a dinner party. How lovely. Should I accept the call? Please do. Be polite. I'm always polite, Admiral. The communication channel to the Valdrine flagship opened. Ambassador Hannah's face appeared on Valthrex's screen. The Supreme Commander found himself momentarily surprised by how calm she looked. Most species showed fear at this point. Some tried to hide it with bravado. This human woman simply looked interested, like someone meeting a new acquaintance at a social gathering.
Greetings,
Hannah said in perfect Valdrine language, which surprised Valthrex even more. Thank you for your message. We've received your terms and conditions. If you could wait just one moment, please. while I consult with our military command. Valthrex nodded, too surprised to speak. The channel remained open, but muted on the human side. Hannah looked at Admiral Han on her private screen. He seems nice enough. Bit full of himself. What do you think? Hyun asked. I think we should decline his generous offer. I agree. Hannah unmuted the channel to the Valdrine flagship. Thank you for waiting, Supreme Commander. We've reviewed your proposal carefully, and I'm afraid we must respectfully decline. Valthrex blinked. In 3 centuries, no one had simply declined. They pleaded. They negotiated. They threatened. They never just said no. You decline? Yes, Hannah said pleasantly. Earth and her colonies will remain independent. We're not interested in joining your empire, but we appreciate you taking the time to visit. Before Valthrex could respond, another voice came through the communication channel. Admiral Hyan's face appeared beside Ambassador Hannah's. He looked directly at the Valdrine commander with eyes that held no fear. No doubt, no hesitation. This is Admiral Hyan of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your ultimatum is rejected. If you wish to enforce your demands, you're welcome to try. He paused, and the smallest smile appeared on his face. I invite you to come and take what you think you can. We'll be waiting. The channel closed. On the Eternal Dominion, Valthrex stared at the blank screen in complete confusion. His officers looked at each other uncertainly. This had never happened before. Species didn't refuse. They didn't invite attack. They didn't smile. Supreme Commander? His tactical officer asked. What are your orders? Valthrex straightened in his chair, his confusion hardening into anger. How dare these primitives refuse the Valdrine Empire? How dare they smile? He would teach them the price of arrogance. All ships, advance into the system. Prepare for standard pacification protocols. These humans will learn respect. The Valdrine Armada moved forward. 500 ships of overwhelming power heading toward Earth. Behind them, they left the edge of the system where long-range sensors might have detected what waited there. In the darkness between stars, on the Terran command station, Admiral Hyan watched the enemy fleet begin its approach. Captain Yuna stood beside him, and she was smiling too. They're coming, she said. Good, Hyan replied. It would have been rude if they'd just left. All ships report ready, sir. Defensive positions established. Everyone knows the plan. Yen nodded. Around Earth, Mars, and the colonies scattered through the system, the Terran Defense Fleet waited. 300 ships, each one built with technology that had been tested and refined through 2 centuries of humanity's most devastating wars. Every weapon system had been designed to fight an enemy as clever and vicious as humans themselves. Every tactic had been developed through simulations of fighting opponents who thought like humans. The Valdrine had spent 12,000 years conquering primitives. Humanity had spent 200 years learning to fight. Themselves, Hyun activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Han. Today, the Valdrine Empire is about to learn an important lesson about humanity. We don't surrender. We don't bow. And we certainly don't stop smiling. He paused. Hold defensive positions. Let them come. Show restraint until I give the word. Let's see what they've got. Across the Terran fleet, officers and crew members smiled at their stations. They had been preparing for this day for decades. Finally, someone had come to test them. The Valdrine Armada continued its advance, confident in their power, certain of their victory. Neither side knew it yet, but the galaxy was about to change forever. The Valdrine Armada moved through the Sol system like a predator that had never known failure. Supreme Commander Valthrex divided his fleet into 3 groups, each with clear objectives. 170 ships would advance on Earth. 150 would target the Mars colonies. The remaining ships would secure the asteroid belt mining operations. It was the same strategy that had worked 847 times before across the galaxy. Valthrex expected the human fleet to scatter. That was what primitives did when they saw real power. They ran to defend their homeworld, abandoning their colonies, hoping to save what they could. But as his tactical displays updated, he saw something strange. The human ships weren't running. They were moving into defensive formations around each target, spreading themselves thin instead of concentrating their forces. "They're making this too easy," his tactical officer said. "They're dividing their fleet to protect everything. Standard doctrine would be to fall back to their homeworld." "Perhaps they don't know standard doctrine," Valthrex replied. "Attack when ready. Disable their defenses. Minimal casualties if possible. We need workers, not corpses." The Valdrin fleet opened fire. Energy beams that could melt steel crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds. Plasma torpedoes followed, bright streaks of contained fusion fire. Kinetic projectiles launched from rail systems. Massive chunks of dense metal accelerated to incredible speeds. It was a bombardment that had shattered the defenses of hundreds of worlds. The human ship's shields lit up as the weapons struck home. Defensive barriers glowed bright blue, absorbing the energy, dispersing it harmlessly into space. And they held. They held much better than Valthrex had expected. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Indomitable, Captain Yuna watched the enemy fire splash against their shields like rain against a window. Shields at 92%. Their weapons are less impressive in person. "Don't get overconfident," Admiral Hayan warned over the communication channel. "Remember the plan. Defensive posture only. Make them think they have a chance." Yuna smiled. "Understood, sir." All ships return fire. Target their sensors and communication arrays only. "Keep it clean." Terran fleet responded with carefully aimed shots. Blue-white beams from directed energy weapons struck with surgical precision, taking out sensor dishes and communication relays on the Valdrine ships. Not enough to cripple them. Just enough to annoy them and disrupt their coordination. On the research station Galileo, orbiting Jupiter, Dr. G watched the battle unfold on her displays. Around her, exotic physics equipment hummed with barely contained power. The FTL inhibitor was ready, but Admiral Hayan had been clear. Not yet. Let the enemy commit fully. Let them think they still had an escape route near Mars. Lieutenant Quan led his fighter squadron through the Valdrine formation with movements that seemed to defy physics. His ships spun and rolled, accelerating and decelerating in ways that should have crushed a human body. But the inertial dampening systems humanity had developed worked perfectly. His fighters danced between the massive Valdrine warships like birds around elephants. "This is Quan to all fighters. They're trying to track us, but their targeting systems are too slow. Keep moving. Make them waste ammunition." Behind him, 20 fighters followed his lead. They were small, fast, and equipped with weapons designed for precision rather than raw power. Each pass they made destroyed another sensor array, another weapon mount, another communication relay. The Valdrine ships tried to swat them like insects, but the fighters were always somewhere else by the time the weapons fired. Supreme. Commander Valthrex watched his tactical display with growing frustration. 6 hours had passed since the battle began. 6 hours of sustained assault. His ships were landing hits constantly. The human shields were taking damage. But they were still holding, and his own fleet was being slowly picked apart by these annoying, precise strikes. "Damage report," he demanded. 17 ships have lost primary sensors. 42 have lost long-range communication. All ships report shield damage from the human counterattacks. No critical damage yet, but they're hitting us exactly where it hurts our coordination. And the humans, their shields are holding. We estimate they're at 70% capacity across their fleet. They should have fallen by now." Valthrex studied the tactical display. Something was wrong. The humans weren't fighting like a desperate species protecting their home. They were fighting like someone testing an opponent, probing for weaknesses, gathering information. Their return fire was too precise, too controlled. They were barely using their full weapons capacity. In the asteroid belt, Captain Sung commanded the stealth reconnaissance ship Shadowrunner. His vessel had been invisible since before the Valdrine arrived. It's hidden by technology that bent light and masked energy signatures. He watched the battle from the darkness between the rocks, analyzing the Valdrine formation, counting their ships, measuring their capabilities. "Shadowrunner 2, Fleet Command. I have full tactical analysis ready." The Valdrine fleet is exactly where we predicted. Their formation leaves their command ships exposed if we approach from Vector 773. Copy that, Shadowrunner, Admiral Hayen replied. Hold position. The show isn't over yet. Valthrex made his decision. All ships, increase power to weapons. Authorization code Valthrexnan Alpha. Full assault protocols. Stop holding back. Across the Valdrine fleet, commanders received the order with surprise. Full assault protocols were rarely used. They meant no more restraint, no more concern for keeping the enemy infrastructure intact. It meant total destruction if necessary. The Valdrine bombardment intensified. Energy output doubled. Plasma torpedoes came in waves instead of single shots. The kinetic weapons fired continuously, filling space with deadly projectiles. It was the kind of firepower that could crack a planet's crust if focused on a single point. The human shields began to fail. First one ship, then another, lost their protective barriers. Alarms sounded across the Terran fleet. Hull breaches reported. Casualties mounting. The Valdrine were finally landing killing blows. Valthrex allowed himself a smile. There it was. The breaking point. Soon the humans would realize their situation was hopeless. Soon they would try to negotiate. He opened a communication channel, ready to accept their surrender. But the channel that opened wasn't from the humans to him. It was Admiral Hayen, broadcasting on all frequencies. And the human was still smiling. Tension, Valdrine, fleet. You have now fought against the Terran defense fleet for 6 hours. You have used your full military power. You have landed hits on our vessels. And still we stand. Yen paused. This is your final warning. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. Leave our system now, and we'll let you go. Stay, and you'll discover why humanity doesn't surrender. Valthrex felt rage boil inside him. How dare this primitive offer him mercy? How dare they act as if they were in control? He cut off the communication and turned to his officers. Continue the assault. No more warnings. Destroy their fleet. But even as he gave the order, a part of his mind whispered a question he didn't want to consider. The humans had shields that held against sustained assault. They had fighters that moved like nothing he'd seen before. They had weapons precise enough to take out specific systems from hundreds of kilometers away. And through it all, they had been fighting defensively, carefully, as if they were holding something back. What if the humans weren't losing? What if they were testing? On the Indomitable, Captain Yuna looked at the damage reports with satisfaction. Shields failing according to schedule. Hull breaches in non-critical sections. Casualties minimal thanks to the evacuation of exposed decks. Specialist Tay checked his displays. Sir, all Valdrine ships are now committed to the assault. They've activated full military authorization. They're using everything they have. Admiral Hayen's voice came through calm and clear. Good. They've shown us their full strength. Now we show them ours. All ships release restraint protocols. Activate primary weapon systems. Captain Yuna, you have command authorization. Show them what the Indomitable can really do. Yuna's smile widened. With pleasure, sir. All ships, this is Captain Yuna. Restraint protocols released. Switch to assault configuration. Let's teach these invaders about human warfare. Across the Terran fleet. Ships that had been fighting at 15% capacity suddenly came alive with new power. Weapon systems that had been offline activated. Shields that had been failing suddenly regenerated to full strength. The humans had been holding back, testing the enemy, gathering data. Now the test was over. Supreme Commander Valthrex saw his tactical display change in an instant. The human ships that had been barely surviving suddenly showed power readings 3 times higher than before. New weapon signatures appeared. Ships he had thought were crippled suddenly moved with perfect coordination for the first time in 3 centuries of conquest. Valthrex felt something he had forgotten existed. Fear. Admiral Hayen's voice came through every speaker on every Terran ship in the fleet. His tone was still calm, but now there was an edge to it. A warning. Humanity has tried patience. We offered mercy. We gave warnings. Now the Valdrine Empire will learn what happens when you threaten our home. Captain Yuna entered a series of commands on her console. The Indomitable shuddered as massive rail cannons extended from hidden bays along its hull. These were not the small precision weapons the Terran fleet had been using. These were the main guns, the weapons designed to kill capital ships with a single shot. Target the Valdrine command carrier, center mass, Una ordered. 1 round. Let's make an impression. The rail cannon fired with a flash of electromagnetic force. A solid projectile, weighing 2 tons and moving at 30% the speed of light, crossed the distance between the fleets in less than a second. The Valdrine command carrier's shields flared bright white as they tried to stop it. They failed. The projectile punched through the shields like they were paper, through the hull, through 3 decks, and out the other side. Secondary explosions rippled along the carrier's length as the kinetic energy was transferred into heat and shock. The carrier didn't explode. It simply stopped being a functioning warship. Power failed. Life support cut out. Half the crew died in an instant from decompression. The other half scrambled for escape pods. Supreme Commander Valthrex watched in horror from his flagship. What was that weapon? His science officer's voice shook as he answered. Kinetic projectile. But the speed. Supreme Commander, nothing should be able to accelerate mass to that velocity. The energy requirements are impossible. Apparently not, Valthrex said quietly around the Sol system. The Terran fleet revealed what they had really been holding. Lieutenant Quan's fighter squadrons released their full payload. Thousands of tiny missiles, each with its own guidance system, each with its own AI deciding the best target. The Valdrine point defense systems tried to shoot them down and managed to destroy hundreds. But thousands more got through. Striking engines, weapon systems, and critical infrastructure with devastating precision. Near Mars, Captain Sung's stealth ship Shadowrunner finally revealed itself, but not alone. 20 more stealth ships appeared around the Valdrine formation. Ships that had been invisible and waiting since before the battle began. They were in perfect position behind the enemy, targeting their engines and rear shields. All shadow units, you are weapons free, Sung said calmly. Then his ship opened fire with concentrated energy beams that sliced through. Valdrine engines like a cutting torch through butter. The experimental vessel Prometheus, commanded by Commander Day, activated its gravitational weapons. These were weapons based on technology humanity had developed from studying black holes and exotic physics. They didn't fire projectiles or energy. They manipulated gravity itself. When Day targeted, a cluster of 6 Valdrine destroyers, space around them warped. The ships crumpled inward as localized gravity increased to crushing force. Metal screamed. Hulls collapsed. In 5 seconds, 6 warships became 6 balls of compressed metal and bodies. Gravitational weapons operating within normal parameters, Day reported. Ready for next target? On Galileo Station, Dr. G watched her instruments carefully. Admiral Hayen, the Valdrine fleet, is preparing to retreat. I'm detecting pre-jump energy signatures from their faster-than-light drives. Activate the FTL inhibitor, Hayen ordered .G through the switch. Around the entire inner Sol system, an invisible field spread out at the speed of light. It was technology humanity had developed specifically for this moment, a field that disrupted the exotic physics required for faster-than-light travel. Nothing could jump to FTL inside this field. Nothing could escape. On the Eternal Dominion, Valthrex's navigation officer looked up in panic. Supreme Commander, we can't jump. Something is preventing FTL activation. The field equations aren't resolving. It's like space itself won't allow it. We're trapped. Valthrex looked at his tactical display with growing despair. In 30 minutes of real combat, the humans had destroyed or disabled over 300 Valdrine ships. 300 ships from a fleet that had thought itself invincible. His forces were scattered, confused, and dying. And now they couldn't run. Specialist Bo sat at her console on the Indomitable with a smile that would have terrified the Valdrine if they could see it. She was humanity's best cyber warfare expert, and for the past 6 hours, she had been quietly infiltrating Valdrine computer systems through their own communication beams. Now, with the enemy in chaos, she activated her programs. Valdrin ships suddenly found their targeting systems showing false information. Their shields flickered as power distribution systems received conflicting commands, their communications filled with static and phantom signals. Ships fired at coordinates where enemy vessels weren't. Commanders gave orders that their ships couldn't execute. The Valdrine fleet fell deeper into confusion. Cyber infiltration complete, Bo reported. The enemy fleet is experiencing cascade system failures. Their firewalls were a joke. Admiral Hoon watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The Valdrine were brave, he would give them that. Even facing overwhelming force, even trapped and confused, they kept fighting. But bravery without wisdom was just another way to die. All ships continue assault. Target weapons and engines. Try to disable rather than destroy. We want prisoners, not corpses. But some Valdrine ships refused to surrender. They fought until their hulls broke apart. They fired until their weapons melted from overuse. They died with honor, if nothing else. Lieutenant Quan pulled his fighter away from a Valdrine cruiser just as it exploded. These guys don't know when to quit. That's what makes them dangerous, Admiral Han replied over the channel. A cornered enemy is always the most deadly. Stay alert. On the Eternal Dominion, Supreme Commander Valthrex finally accepted the truth he had been denying. His fleet was beaten. More than beaten. Destroyed. Of the 500 ships he had brought to this system, fewer than 100 were still functional. And those were surrounded by a Terran fleet that had barely taken any real damage. He had come here expecting to conquer primitives. Instead, he had found predators that made the Valdrine look like children playing at war. Open a channel to the human commander, Valthrex said quietly. When Admiral Han's face appeared on his screen, Valthrex saw no triumph there, no joy. Just cold professionalism and perhaps a hint of disappointment. I wish to negotiate, Valthrex said. Oh, you want to talk, Hune replied. After you ignored our warnings, after you attacked our home, after hundreds of your soldiers died because you were too arrogant to listen, we have fought. You have won. Is that not enough? Heian was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer, but somehow more frightening. Supreme Commander, you came to our home with 500 warships. You demanded we surrender our freedom. You threatened our families. You attacked us when we said no. And you want to know if this is enough? He leaned forward. This is just the beginning of your education about humanity. Valthrex felt his throat tighten. What do you want? Right now? I want you to order all remaining Valdrine ships to power down their weapons and shields. I want your crews to prepare for boarding. I want complete access to your databases and communication systems. You have 5 minutes to comply. If you don't, we'll continue this lesson until there are no Valdrine ships left in our system. And if we do comply, then maybe you get to go home eventually and tell your emperor what happened here. Maybe you get to warn the rest of your empire that humanity is not prey. Heian's expression hardened. 5 minutes, Supreme Commander. Choose wisely. The channel closed. Valthrex looked around his bridge at his officers. Some looked angry. Some looked defeated. All looked scared. They were warriors of the Valdrine Empire, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, and they had been utterly crushed by a species they had thought primitive. Power down weapons and shields, Valthrex ordered. Send the surrender command to all ships. One by one, the surviving Valdrine vessels went dark. Their weapons fell silent. Their shields dropped. They hung in space like wounded animals, waiting for the Predator to decide their fate. Captain Una watched the enemy fleet surrender and felt no joy. That was almost too easy. It always is when you know your enemy better than they know themselves, Admiral Heian replied. We studied them for 30 years. We knew their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. They knew nothing about us, except that we were young. Arrogance made them weak. What now? Now we secure the prisoners. Now we gather intelligence. And now we send a message to the galaxy that humanity is here, we're strong, and we will not be conquered. Hune paused. And Yuna. Send a coded message to Admiral Yun. Tell her to bring the first battle group to Sol. It's time the Valdrine saw our real military strength. Yuna smiled. They thought this was our main fleet? They're about to learn otherwise. In the wreckage and silence of the battlefield, the Valdrin Empire learned its first hard lesson about humanity. They had ruled through fear and power for 12,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of species. They had thought themselves invincible. They were wrong, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Valdrin survivors sat in the detention areas of various Terran ships, and for most of them, the shock was worse than the wounds. They were warriors of an empire that had never known defeat. Now they sat behind energy barriers, prisoners of a species they had thought primitive. Some stared at the walls. Some wept quietly. Some muttered prayers to gods they hoped were listening. Supreme. Commander Valthrex sat alone in a small room on the Indomitable. It was clean, temperature-controlled, and more comfortable than he deserved. That somehow made it worse. The humans weren't treating him like a dangerous enemy. They were treating him like someone who needed pity. The door opened and Admiral Hayne entered, followed by Ambassador Hannah and a human Valthrex hadn't seen before. This new woman carried herself with the kind of authority that needed no weapons or threats. She sat down across from him with a small data tablet. "I am diplomat, she said in perfect Valdrin. "I've been assigned to negotiate the terms of your surrender and the future. Relationship between the Valdrin Empire and humanity. I have no authority to negotiate for the Empire," Valthrex said. "Then we'll have to arrange communication with someone who does," Na replied. "But first, I want you to understand your situation. You came here with 500 ships. 321 of those ships were destroyed. 1079 were disabled but salvageable. 62,000 Valdrin soldiers are dead. 90,000 are prisoners." The numbers hit Valthrex like physical blows. So many... ... Yes, so many. And all of them because your empire assumed we would be easy prey. I'll lean forward. "Now here are our terms. The Valdrin Empire will withdraw all military forces from any system within 500 light-years of Sol. Your empire will release every species you've conquered in the last 100 years. You will provide full technological databases and star charts. You will pay reparations for this attack." "It's impossible," Valthrex said immediately. "The Emperor would never agree to such terms. You're asking us to give up a quarter of our territory. We're asking you to stop being conquerors," Heon said quietly. "There's a difference. The Emperor will send more fleets, bigger fleets. You may have defeated us, but the Empire has thousands of ships. You cannot fight them all." Diplomat Na smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "Admiral Hayne, I think it's time we showed the Supreme Commander what he's really dealing with." They took Valthrex to the observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the wreckage of his fleet floating in space. But he could also see the Terran ships, and now in the distance, something else was appearing. Ships were dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. "That's Admiral Yoon's first battle group," Yoon explained. 300 ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in your fleet. "And Supreme Commander, this is just one of our 3 main battle groups. We have 2 more just like it." Valthrex felt his legs weaken. "You let us attack with only a defensive fleet, ... Wanted to see what you were capable of," Yoon said. "We wanted to measure the Valdrin military strength. Now we know. You're powerful, yes, but you're not invincible. Not even close." Historian Ra stepped forward. She was an older woman with kind eyes, but her words were sharp. "Do you want to know why you lost, Supreme Commander? Really want to know?" "Please," Valthrex whispered. "You've spent 12,000 years conquering species that had no chance against you. You fought primitives with sticks and stones or species that had just discovered space travel. Every victory was easy. So you stopped improving. Why innovate when the same tactics work every time? Why advance your technology when you already have the best weapons?" Ra paused. "But humanity? We spent 200 years fighting ourselves. Every weapon we built was designed to kill humans. Every tactic was developed to beat human intelligence. Every defense was made to stop human creativity. We've been fighting opponents as clever and vicious as we are since we learned to make fire." She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. Wars, millions of them. Weapons of incredible destruction. Tactics of brilliant cruelty. We are survivors, Supreme Commander. We are predators who learn to hunt other predators. You never stood a chance. Valthrex looked at the images and felt sick. These humans had done such terrible things to each other, and they had survived. What hope did the Valdrine have against a species that had been hardened by centuries of their own warfare? Ambassador Hannah spoke gently. We don't want to destroy your empire, Supreme Commander. We just want to stop you from destroying others. There's a difference between strength and cruelty, between defense and conquest. The Emperor will never agree to your terms, Valthrex said again, but this time his voice held less certainty. Then let's ask him, Na replied. She activated a communication system. We've been in contact with your homeworld for the past 2 hours. The Emperor has agreed to speak with us. A holographic image appeared. The Valdrin Emperor was old, ancient, even by the standards of a long-lived species. He sat on a throne of crystal and metal, surrounded by advisors who looked terrified. When he saw Valthrex, his expression softened slightly. Supreme Commander. You live. Barely, my Emperor. I have failed you, no, the Emperor said quietly. I failed you. I sent you against an enemy I didn't understand. The fault is mine. He turned to face Admiral Hune. You are the human commander? I am. You could have destroyed my entire fleet, but you showed restraint. Why? Hyun considered the question. Because dead enemies can't learn. Because slaughter for the sake of slaughter is wasteful. Because we judge species by what they might become, not just what they are. He paused. And because we hoped you would be wise enough to accept peace. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Your terms are harsh. Your attack was unprovoked, Na replied. Our terms are fair given the circumstances. You came to conquer us. We're letting you leave alive. And if I refuse? Admiral Hoyan gestured to the viewport where Admiral Yoon's battle group was now visible. Then we'll visit your homeworld with the same invitation you gave us. Submit or face pacification. But unlike you, we'll keep our word. We'll destroy every military installation, every warship, every weapon you have. And then we'll leave you alive to rebuild as a peaceful species. Your choice, Emperor? The threat hung in the air like a knife. Not a bluff, a promise. The Valdrin Emperor looked at his advisors, at Valthrex, at the images of destroyed ships floating in space around Earth. He had ruled for 3,000 years. He had seen the Empire grow from a single world to a galactic power, and now he was facing a species that could end everything he had built. I accept your terms, he said finally. The Valdrin Empire will withdraw from the designated territories. We will release the conquered species. We will provide the information you request. He looked directly at Heian. But I have one question. What guarantee do we have that humanity won't simply conquer us once we're weak? You have my word, Heian said, and I'll give you something else. A demonstration of human intentions. He turned to N.A., who pulled up a star chart. These systems, she pointed to dozens of markers, were recently conquered by your empire. The species there are suffering under your occupation. We're offering to help liberate them. Not to rule them ourselves, but to help them become independent. We'll provide aid, technology, and protection until they can defend themselves. No tribute. No subjugation. Just help. The Emperor studied the chart. Why would you do this? Because that's what civilized species do, Hannah said. They help those who need it. They protect those who can't protect themselves. They build alliances based on respect, not fear. The galaxy is a big place, Emperor. There's room for all of us, if we're willing to share it. Valthrex watched the Emperor's face and saw the exact moment when pride gave way to wisdom. The old ruler nodded slowly. Then let us begin a new era. The Valdrin Empire will honor these terms. And perhaps we can learn from humanity. It's all we ask, Hune said. The communication ended. Na turned to Valthrex. You and your surviving crews will be released once we've verified the treaty is being honored. Your ships will be repaired and returned to you. You'll be allowed to return home, just like that. Valthrex couldn't believe it. You're just letting us go? We're not monsters, Hyun said. We're not conquerors. You attacked us, and we defended ourselves. Now it's over. Go home. Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to be left in peace and help those who need it. Velthrek stood, and for the first time since entering the Sol system, he felt something other than fear and shame. He felt respect. These humans had beaten him utterly, and now they were showing mercy. It was more than the Valdrian had ever shown their enemies. I will tell them, he promised. I will make sure the galaxy knows what humanity truly is, Udahayan said, because we're about to introduce ourselves to everyone else. 6 months passed since the Battle of Sol, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The news spread fast through trade routes and communication networks. The Voldran Empire, invincible for 12 millennia, had been defeated by a species most civilizations had never heard of, the humans. The people from Earth, the species that said no to conquest. Ambassador June stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Horizon, watching as they approached the Galactic Coalition headquarters. It was a massive station built at the intersection of 3 major trade routes, a place where dozens of species met to discuss policy and trade. Humanity had been invited to send a representative. This was their introduction to galactic society. Nervous? Captain A asked. She commanded the Horizon, humanity's first purpose-built diplomatic ship. It was sleek, elegant, and armed well enough to defend itself if diplomacy failed. Terrified, June admitted. We're about to walk into a room full of aliens who just watched us defeat the biggest military power in the galaxy. Half of them probably think we're the next great threat. Are they wrong? June smiled. That's what we're here to prove. The Horizon docked at the station, and June led the human delegation through corridors filled with species of every imaginable type. Tall ones, small ones, ones with fur, scales, or skin that shifted colors. Some looked at the humans with curiosity, others with fear, a few with barely hidden hostility. The council chamber was enormous, with seating for representatives from 40 different civilizations. When June entered, the room fell silent. Every eye turned to watch the humans take their designated seats. The council speaker, an ancient being from a species called the Theln, called the meeting to order. We gather today to welcome a new species to galactic society. Humanity from the planet Earth. They have been invited following their successful defense against Valdrian aggression. Successful defense. June appreciated the diplomatic language that turned a crushing victory into simple defense. Ambassador June, the speaker continued, you have requested this assembly. Please state your purpose. June stood and felt the weight of dozens of species watching him. Thank you, honored speaker. Humanity comes before you today, not as conquerors, but as friends. We know you've all heard about the Battle of Sol. You know we defeated the Valdrian fleet. Some of you probably wonder if we're the next empire that will demand your submission. He paused. We're not. A representative from the Kelton species, reptilian and aggressive, spoke up. Words are easy. The Valdrian also claim to bring order and civilization. How are you different? Because we're offering choice, June replied. He activated a holographic display showing a star chart. These systems were occupied by the Valdrian Empire. We've helped 23 of them regain independence in the last 6 months. We provided military protection, technological aid, and medical supplies. We asked for nothing in return. No tribute. No territory. Nothing. Lies, another representative said. No species acts without self-interest. You're right, June agreed. We do have self-interest. We want to live in a galaxy where species aren't afraid of conquest. We want neighbors who are strong enough to defend themselves. We want trade partners, not subjects. That's our self-interest. A peaceful galaxy is better for everyone, including us. The speaker studied the data. These reports from the liberated systems confirm your claims. Several species have already established diplomatic relations with humanity. The Mordani people speak very highly of your assistance, because we help them without asking for anything except friendship, June said. That's what we're offering all of you. Mutual defense, free trade, technology exchange, equal partnership. We're proposing a new framework for interstellar relations based on respect instead of fear. And if we refuse? The Kelton representative asked suspiciously. Then you refuse, June shrugged. We're not going to force anyone. Any species that wants to stay isolated, that's your right. Any species that wants to ally with us, we welcome you. Any species that attacks us, ... He let the sentence hang. Everyone knew how that ended. A small furry representative from the Pixen species spoke up in a squeaky voice. The Valdrin protected us from raiders. If they withdraw, who will keep us safe? We will, June said. If you want our help, we're offering protection to any species that needs it. No strings attached. Just ask, and humanity will send ships to guard your space until you can defend yourselves. Why? The speaker asked the question everyone was thinking. Why would humanity spend resources protecting species that offer nothing in return? June thought about the best way to explain it, because that's what decent people do. My species spent most of our history fighting each other. We know what war costs. We know what fear does to a civilization. We finally learned that cooperation is better than conquest. We want to share that lesson. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives looked hopeful, others suspicious. The Kelton representative stood again. I propose we test these claims. My people have been raided by the Kresh pirates for 2 years. The Valdrine promised protection, but did nothing. If humanity is sincere, protect my people. June nodded. Send us the coordinates. We'll have ships there within a week. Just like that. Just like that. Captain A stood beside June after the council session ended. You've just committed our forces without checking with command. Admiral Ho will understand, June said. Besides, this is exactly what we're here for. To prove we mean what we say. 5 days later, 3 Terran warships arrived at the Kelton homeworld. The Kresh pirates had been terrorizing merchant vessels for months, using small, fast ships that the Kelton couldn't catch. When the pirates saw the human vessels, they attacked. Thinking 3 ships would be easy prey, Lieutenant Quan, now promoted to commander, led the defense. His fighter squadrons intercepted the pirate ships with the same precision they had used against the Valdrine. Within an hour, the pirate force was scattered. Half their ships destroyed, the rest running for their lives. The Kelton people watched in amazement as the human ships then offered to help repair damage from the pirate raids. The Terran crews worked alongside Kelton workers, sharing technology and techniques. When they left a week later, the Kelton had new defensive satellites and training in how to protect themselves. The Kelton representative returned to the Galactic Coalition and announced his people's full support for humanity's proposal, one by one. Other species followed. The Pixens signed a mutual defense treaty. The Mordani opened trade agreements. A dozen smaller civilizations requested human military advisors and technology exchange. Within 3 months, humanity had gone from unknown to one of the most respected voices in galactic affairs. But not everyone was happy. In a dark corner of the galaxy, the Kresh pirate lords held a meeting. They had profited from chaos and weak civilizations. This new human interference was bad for business. We should strike at them, one lord suggested. Show the galaxy that humanity isn't invincible. Did you not see what they did to the Valdrin? Another lord replied. 500 warships destroyed. The Valdrine were predictable. We are not. We strike fast, we hit their trade routes, we disappear. They cannot protect everyone, and when they hunt us down, then we make them pay such a price that other species think twice about accepting their protection. The Kresh pirates launched their campaign of terror. Attacking human merchant vessels and any ships from species allied with Earth, they were brutal, efficient, and deadly. In 1 month, they destroyed 30 ships and killed thousands of civilians. Admiral Ho sat in his office on Earth, reading the casualty reports. Captain Yuna and Commander Day stood before him. The pirates think we're spread too thin. They think we can't protect our allies and hunt them at the same time. They're not wrong, Yuna said. We have commitments across 200 systems now. We can't be everywhere, and we make an example, Ho said quietly. find their main base, take every ship we can spare, and end this. The hunt took 6 weeks. Captain Sung and his stealth ships tracked pirate movements across a dozen systems. Specialists Bo infiltrated their communication networks and found references to a hidden base in an asteroid field outside charted space. When they finally located it, what they found was impressive. The pirates had built a fortress with hundreds of ships and defensive weapons. Commander Day commanded the assault force. 20 Terran warships approached the pirate base with their weapons ready. The pirates had 30 times that number, but quantity meant nothing against quality. The battle was short and decisive. The pirates fought with desperation, knowing they faced extinction. But human weapons, tactics, and technology were simply superior. The gravitational weapons crushed pirate ships. The rail cannons punched through their defenses. The cyber warfare programs disabled their systems. In 3 hours, the crushed pirate lord's main base was destroyed, and their fleet was scattered wreckage. The few surviving pirates were given a choice: surrender and face trial, or run and be hunted forever. Most chose surrender. The message spread across the galaxy. Humanity protected its friends. Attack them at your peril. On Earth, Admiral Ho received a personal communication from the Valdrine Emperor. The old ruler appeared tired but sincere. "Admiral, I wanted to thank you.